Situated there.
Sweet. Oh yeah. Dadgummit. We live on Facebook.
Yeah, how about that? I said we get us there. I was going to do it on, well, I'll just download it like I did yesterday and do it on YouTube. All right, let me situate here. Oh, man. All right, this is the welcome Facebook. We can't really see who all is going to go in, but I'm excited about this conversation today because I have the coach at my alma mater, Coach Dedrique Taylor, on with me today. Full court press with Coach Jay. So I'm just out here building some content, trying to get better as a coach and grow. So, Coach, let me go ahead and start you out and tell us about who you are. Tell us who you are. Tell us about you.
Dedrique Taylor, as you said, going into my 8th year as the head coach at Cal State Fullerton. I'm from this area, from Pomona. Kind of been all over the West Coast in terms of coaching and being an assistant. This is my first head coaching experience, but it's been one of the best experiences that I could ask for as far as, being a coach and becoming a head coach. So we've had our trials and tribulations, but here as of late, we've been able to kind of turn the tide and get it heading in the right direction, and slipped up a lot last year, which was disappointing. But again, it is what it is in terms of just continuing to learn and grow and develop. And I feel like our staff is poised to be able to do that moving forward. I don't know. What else you want to know about me? I hate talking about myself.
Tell us about your experience at Arizona State with my good friend James Harden. He used to play at LA Fitness in Long Beach when he was at Artesia. Yeah. So he calls me by the school name. He called me Cal State Fullerton. But so and how was that training a pro, coaching a pro for a year?
Yeah, that was extremely unique, just starting with the recruiting process. For me personally, it was one of the best recruiting summers that I had in my career, just because I was on James Harden watch. Like I didn't necessarily watch any other recruits that summer. If there was anywhere that he was going to be, I was there. And when he left the gym, I left the gym. When he walked in the gym, I walked in the gym. So that was really good, just because I got a chance to watch him and learn about him quite a bit. But he also was on a very talented AAU team that included some of the guys that they went. I think a kid went to Gonzaga, UCLA. They had some high-powered teammates, and so that part of it was really unique. And then once we got him, he was the youngest freshman in the Pac-12. I think he was 17 when he started playing as a true freshman. So he was still relatively young, but well beyond his years as far as talent, as far as IQ, as far as ability to be able to pass and see the floor and make the right basketball decision. So, ironically, a lot of it, James's first year at Arizona State, we spent a lot of time trying to get him to take over, get him to utilize his skill set and understand that you are a McDonald's All-American and you got that for a reason. And your talent is very, very, very high. And you can take over whenever you want. And so trying to get him to realize that and be comfortable with it more than anything. Just kind of being comfortable in his own skin of being a 17-year-old freshman and arguably being one of the better players in the country, I think was really unique for him. But he started to realize it. And once he did, he was the master of his own fate at that point. He could get anywhere he wanted on the floor. He could make any shot that he wanted on the floor. At that time, he was probably more of a driver than he was a shooter, but whereas probably now he's equally the same or maybe a better shooter than he was. And not that he couldn't shoot, his bread was just buttered, utilizing his ability to get by guys and get downhill and get to the front of the rim. And then once he was there, he was able to make the right basketball decision. And sometimes that's finish at the rim. Sometimes that's throw it to the corner of the board for a post guy. Sometimes that's hook pass or bounce pass out to a shooter. And so I felt like he had the same mindset that we see now. He had that in college, but obviously it's matured and it's grown and it's probably evolved just the same to be even more complicated, where he now has the ball in the middle of the floor and he can see all 9 defenders in front of him. And now he also can manipulate them however he chooses, whether he wants a guy to move or, just different things that he sees schematically that I would say the normal person probably doesn't see, nor do they understand what goes into his preparation, but also what goes into the execution of his performance night in and night out. So it was really unique to see that develop at Arizona State and then be a part of it. You know, he was a guy that was constantly trying to figure out, how can I get better? How can I improve? I mean, he was a guy that came into college. Physically, he was big. He was, as they say, he was big boned. When James hit you, you got hit. You felt like you got touched up. But his body fat was pretty high. His body fat percentage was really high. In fact, it was 16, 17% when he came. And then his second year, he got it down to about 12 or 13. But when he got to the NBA, he came back to campus All-Star weekend, and it was down around 6 or 5. And he understood the significance of being in that type of shape and controlling his body fat, and how important it was to be in shape to play that many minutes, that many nights consecutively, but then also be at the top of your game. And so just watching his metamorphosis grow and continue to evolve has been nothing short of spectacular.
Right. And it doesn't help that he's left-handed too. So that
yeah, that's a whole nother issue. You know, with guys that people don't understand. I mean, coaching a left-hander is really, really unique because they're the exact opposite. And so his dominant pivot foot is different than a right-hander, obviously, and how he moves. I mean, it's weird. I can give you a quick example. Is we have this drill called post progression, and so it's a guard-oriented drill where guard would catch it in the post, kind of the mid post, and we were working on post area offense. And I knew he was going left. I knew for sure he was going left. In fact, he would tell me I'm about to go left, and he just his subtle herky jerkiness would jab you to the right, and you jump over there because it was believable that he was going that way, and the whole time he was going left to be able to score. And so, just that in itself is unique, in my opinion.
Yeah, I've been watching him for a long time myself, but I've also understood that like when he goes left, he's going to the basket, and when he goes right, he's gonna either pull up or he's gonna make some kind of move, step back, and pretty much get you for a jump shot at some point in the time. But on top of that, since that was one of your greatest recruiting moments, what actually made you get into coaching?
You know, I'm the son of a coach and the son of an educator. Both my parents were in education as far as elementary, high school, and junior high school. My dad started at junior high school in terms of coaching in the community that we grew up in, and he just kind of one of those community coaches, if you will. And so I grew up around that. My best friends, their dads were coaches, whether it was football, whether it was baseball, and so that community father figure was always present, and it just always kind of attracted my attention. I didn't really realize that I wanted to coach until I was already done playing professionally and done in general. I decided that I was going to start off trying to be an agent. I wanted to be an agent. So I worked for a year and a half doing that, and things, you know, worked with a really good company, but just things didn't go the way I thought they would. And it just became a natural progression to get into coaching. And once I made that decision, I went back to UC Davis and started off in my alma mater and left there and went to Loyola Marymount, and then, you know, on and on. But coaching is something that has always been near and dear to my heart because of the house that I grew up in. As just the same as education, the significance of it, and how important it is to continue to perpetuate that, particularly amongst African-American males and the African-American community in general. Just how significant it is to get an education, and then obviously get an education that's paid for by the university is even sweeter.
I'll tell you a funny story about UC Davis. My senior year, I think that was their second year, or may have been their first year in our league. And we had Thomas, I think his name was Julie Rat, because we used to laugh at his name in the report. And I broke my nose up there, and I tried to come back out. Right about the late second half, and they wouldn't let me come out. The game went to 3 overtimes. We were within 30 minutes of our flight and almost missed it. But it was good. I was mad because I told my team, I said, when he comes back, I'm going to get him back. He broke my nose.
No doubt.
He broke it on his chin, so it was pretty funny.
Oh, wow.
And then our next game was against Pacific on ESPN. So I had this hideous mask that they painted black with a magic marker.
Sure. Yeah.
And Bobby Brown, LB, threw me a bounce pass, and I missed it because when I looked down, it was some padding right up under here. And so the ball went right out of bounds. I was like, yo, take me out. And they were like, I was arguing with Coach Burton and Brent. Yeah, I was arguing with him. It's like, look, I can't go back in the game with this on. He's like, you can't do that. So I forget her name. She was the head athletic trainer. She had to come over and say,
Julie.
yeah,
Julie
Julie.
Mack.
Yeah, Julie was like, I'll let you go back out there, but we're not going to be held liable if you.
Yeah.
So I was like, ooh. So I just let me go. But
that takes some getting used to.
yeah, it was bad because, like, I was thinking I was gonna have this thing that was smushed in my face, but it was poking out. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
no, I can't play this song.
That is funny.
Yeah, it was good. I had a good experience at Cal State Fullerton. But
Sure.
so I've been talking about culture a lot. So
Yeah.
I know going into Cal State Fullerton, they had a couple down years. I know after I left, I think it was 2 years later, a year later or 2 years later, they made the tournament. I know you made the tournament as well, the NCAA tournament. So what do you think it ultimately takes to build culture? And then on top of that, to piggyback off of that, what was your ultimate focus when you got to Cal State Fullerton to build that culture that you wanted?
That's obviously a really good question. And nowadays culture is somewhat of a buzzword when you start talking about any organization, let alone sports organizations. And so, culture is extremely important to me. I think it's important to most successful organizations. And when we first got here, being from here, I was a little bit familiar with some of the personnel. I was a little bit familiar with some of the surrounding issues, if you will, in terms of dealing with Cal State Fullerton. And most importantly, what I wanted to do was just establish some type of stability. And the one thing we talked about when we first met with our group is whatever you're doing right now, we would like for you to increase your work output by 10%, just 10%. And that applied to the academic piece, that applied to the weight room piece, that applied to the basketball piece, and anything else that they were doing. We just wanted them to try to get better incrementally that way. And more so than anything, what I wanted to do was just try and improve our work ethic. Because I think at the end of the day, you can say and do a lot of things, but if you don't work, you're not going to receive the benefit that you are after if you don't put in the necessary work. And so what we were trying to establish is just, we wanted to be the hardest working team on campus. Right. And I think that is a huge statement, particularly with, baseball. Yes. And their program and their success. And at the time that I got here, I think Kelly Ford had been here maybe 1 or 2 years, and they had already started to win. And so I went to the weight room coach and I asked him, I said, hey, Isaac, who's the hardest working team? And before I could even get it out, he said baseball. Right. It wasn't even close. And so I began to try and ask our team to mimic some of the baseball behavior as far as how hard they work, how committed they are in the weight room. And then once we established that part of the work, then I began to talk about the extra work. So there's the work that you're supposed to do, and then there's the extra work. And so that became kind of our rallying cry in terms of establishing our culture. And so one of the things that we've also tried to establish in terms of our culture is just not only the work ethic piece, but obviously growth and development. How do you grow and how do you develop? Well, it starts with the work ethic piece. And then outside of improving or increasing their output as far as work was concerned, I think we set 2 other rules, and that was don't ever be late and always tell the truth. Right. And that was it. Don't ever be late and always tell the truth. And those 3 things were what we kind of set as pillars to try to build our culture with. And those are things that I think are significantly important to myself and things that I've seen, whether it's been a part of a program or I've learned or studied as a part of a different organization that helped them succeed. And so I identified those things as pillars. And so we've established those things, and you have to fight for them every single day. As much success as we've had or as little success as we've had, every day you have to fight for those things as a part of your culture. And so guys, I say this all the time in recruiting, guys that come here, if you don't work, you're going to stand out like a sore thumb, because guys, just that's where our bread's buttered, especially from a culture standpoint, but obviously from a growth and development standpoint. So those are some of the things that we've tried to establish as far as our culture is concerned. And we really don't try to go far away from those things, just because I think if you can keep it simple, if you can keep it tangible for guys, and you can continuously remind them in a simple format, they have something easy for them to be able to latch onto, and they're not wondering, okay, well, am I supposed to be doing this? Am I supposed to be doing that? No, no, no. When you come in here, you're working as hard as you possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you reach that, then push yourself just another 10%, and there becomes your extra. And then you'll feel good about getting better every single day.
Right. So this is a question that's not technically on my list, but it came to me while you were talking. So do you consider yourself one of the hardest working coaches? And why do you think that you are, if you consider yourself, I think a lot of coaches consider themselves the hardest working coach in the business or whatever, but
Sure.
Cal State Fullerton, the Big West Conference is not really, hey, we're at the Big West Conference. It's not like, it's D1. It's good basketball. I learned that.
No doubt.
What I got. It's really good basketball. They play a lot of up tempo, and then you got the teams like Pacific and those guys who lock down and play that way. But what would you say separates you and makes you a hard working coach, or the hardest working coach in your opinion?
I don't necessarily compare myself to other people as far as hard working. Mm-hmm. I think I do work hard in my own right. My standard is different than everyone else's, and I don't try to go out and compare myself in that capacity as far as, are we working hard? I look at it from this standpoint. I've been given a plight, and I want to make sure that I finish that. And so I gauge myself based on knowing, again, what is it that I have to accomplish? What am I trying to accomplish? And then what can I do to accomplish that on my own? And then I establish that, and I try to go as hard as I can doing those things. And then I understand also that in order to accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish, I need other people. We need other people to help us. And so how can I rope them in and get them to buy into what it is that we're trying to do? And so from a hardworking standpoint, I think everybody's different. Like, we have a kid on our team who's 6'9" and is probably 260. His hard work, or his ability to work hard, it looks different than the other guy that's on our team that's 6'3", 200 pounds. But I also buy into learning what that looks like for that 6'9", 260-pound kid versus that 6'3", 200-pound kid. And once they've set that standard, once you've shown me what that standard, or once I've showed myself what that standard looks like, then it's my job to continue to push them to meet that at least every single day. And then is there any room, any capacity for us to grow that standard? And so, again, I just compare to, and again, I try to keep it simple. Like, here's what we are supposed to do. Here's what I know leads to winning. How do you know that? Because this is what, when we won, this was present. These concepts, they were present. So I need the best that you have. I need you to go out there and play as hard as you possibly can, and then ask for a sub. Right. That to me is the standard. Like, that's me. That's you buying in and giving everything you possibly have. But obviously, guys don't always do that because they want to save themselves, or they want to play X amount of minutes, and that's a whole nother conversation. But that's more so how I would judge how hard we work, or define working hard is are you giving your best? Is that all you have? And if it is, then that's okay. But we gotta make sure that we're consistent with that effort. And that's just kind of how we value and evaluate how hard we're working. Me personally, I just always feel like there's something else I should be doing. Can I read something more to help me get better? Can I send an extra text to help represent our program the right way? Can I make an extra phone call? And yeah, it gets tedious, but again, you have to understand, what is your why? Why are you doing these things? Why do you coach? Why do you exist? What's your purpose? And so in those moments where you feel like I've done enough, you start to think about your why, and then it somehow, some way, it propels you to move beyond what you've set out as the so-called standard.
Right. So you said your two standards and program standards were be honest and always tell the truth and be on time.
Yeah.
How important, because you said you value that in your life too. So how important was that, and how important is that in your recruiting process to say? Because that since that is your standard, that's your value, that's what you believe in and thrive on. How important is that when you're out recruiting a kid? Like, do you waver off of that, or do you stick to that, and you can kind of tell when you're talking to a kid whether they're going to adhere to that, or do you take a chance?
No, I try to stay. I try to stay true to that. I try to identify those things in recruiting. Like I try to sift through all of the different layers that are there to establish who are we getting. Like what do they do most? Are they consistently late? And if they are consistently late, are there things that we can do to help them recognize, be aware that we started at 1 o'clock, and you continue to come in here at 1:05? What's the problem there? You know, how you say you want to be a pro. Well, here's what pros do. If we're supposed to be here at 1 o'clock, pros are in the building by 12 at the latest. And so we try to, when I first got here, man, I didn't do that. I took everybody. If you had talent and a pulse, come on, let's go play. I thought I could coach those guys. But as I sat in this seat and continued to look at what was happening to us from a talent perspective, we were in every game. But then it came to how consistently we could count on each other to do what was required to win. So from a basketball terminology, you need a stop. And the ball's on the outside third. And on the outside third, you got to be on the midline if you're a help defender. Well, we would lose games because that guy that was supposed to be on the midline, he wasn't there. We couldn't count on him. And so you ask yourself, well, why can't I count on them? Well, it's because as you're recruiting them, they're going to reveal who they are by, if they say they're going to do something and they don't do it, and that pattern continues to show up, then that's who you get. And so being consistent in that particular area is what I seek out. How consistent are you in doing these things? And are you aware and vulnerable and able to change? Can you make the adjustment? Because as you know, as you're recruiting or anything in life, everybody, I want to be the best. I want to be the Kobe Bryant, or I want to be the player of the year. I want to be these things. Well, there are certain criteria that comes with that. And it's not for the faint of heart. It's not for the weak. It's not for the undisciplined. And again, if you look at successful organizations, whether it's basketball, football, business, those certain pillars, man, they're always present and they're always consistent. And so I believe it's up to you as the leader to pick and choose of those things, what's important for you, because you're not going to be able to do them all. But what's important for you, and then how do you value it? And then how do you evaluate whether or not that young man or that young lady can do it? And I'll just throw a quick, it's not a shout out, but just a quick deal in here in regards to one of the things that I've learned. There's a book out there by Kevin Eastman. Okay. And it's called Why the Best Are the Best. And literally Kevin and I are friends, and I read this book a couple of years ago. And man, like I just buy 25 at a time. And anybody I come in contact with, I'll give it to them. Because what Kevin did was he took there's 25 words and he studied all these different organizations, and he literally would ask them, why are you so good? And what he found is these 25 words were present in all of these organizations, and they were consistently present, but he asked these organizations to define them. And so what he did was he put it in a book form and defined these 25 words. And honestly, man, it's almost biblical for me in terms of how much I use the book, how true I think it is, how valuable I think it is. And it's straightforward. It's no arithmetic. It's not algebra. It is straightforward. And that's the thing I respect about it the most. But again, I think you find that level of consistency centered around those values, and therein lies, what you're after.
It's still on the low recruiting part a little bit. I talked about this a couple of live videos back. Somewhat I touched on it. I didn't really touch on it, but I think it would be good for some that may watch this video later or some that are watching right now. Tell these parents how important they are in the recruiting process, because I don't think some parents really understand that you're being recruited too.
No question.
Because nobody wants to hear that screaming parent in the crowd that's yelling at you. I've been with you for 4 years, and I've given you this scholarship that's $40,000 a year for 4 years. No, so let them know how, well, in your eyes, how important it is for parents, and then just in general, like how important. Yeah. And touch the social media aspect for watching.
Sure. Yeah, you're probably gonna have to keep me on track here because I'm gonna go all around the world. But I think everybody has a perspective, right? Like, so I have a perspective. I'm 45 years old. I've been coaching for 20 years about. I've been a head coach for 8 years, and that perspective has evolved as I sat in this seat and moved around the business. Parents, their perspective comes and goes, but it's really most times it's probably about a 6 or 7, maybe an 8-year cycle, 4 years of high school, 4 years of college. And so they don't really understand and or appreciate how important their input is, or how important their interaction is with coaches. So much so to where, I think it's Maya Angelou who says, when someone shows you who they are, believe them.
Right.
So when you see a parent over there and they're cool, calm, and collected, and they're just there to cheer on and support, there's probably who you're gonna get. But then you obviously get the 100% opposite end of that spectrum where they're loud and boisterous and doing all those things. You got to be able to expect that, and I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is when you ignore what you saw, or you don't captivate or cultivate what you saw and be ready to deal with that as it comes onto your plate. I'm not saying you run away from the kids whose parents are like that, because you don't know why they're like that. But once we establish that a young man is good enough, we're moved past that. Now it becomes all of the things that you're talking about in terms of learning about them. So what do they brand themselves with on social media? What do they look at? What are they tweeting about? What words, what language, how are they representing themselves in a social setting?
Right.
And that goes for parents and for players, prospective players. The one I love is just, when a parent calls and they say 2 things that are buzzwords for me. They say, my kid's under recruited.
I knew it.
And then they hit me with, yeah, and then he shut down so-and-so, who's a top 20 player in the country. Okay, time out. Time out. You can't just shut down a top 20 player kid in the country and be under recruited, because if it's a top 10 player in the country or top 20, they're going to have at least 30 different schools there. And of those 30 different schools, those guys got friends that got friends. And that's in large part how recruiting works. USC may call me and say, hey, D, I saw this kid, man. We were watching so-and-so, top 30 player in the country, but he played against this kid, man. You should check him out. To me, this is my own deal. There's no such thing nowadays as under recruited.
No.
There's a such thing as he's being recruited at the level he should be. And sometimes that level is 0.
Right.
And nobody wants to really function with that. Nobody wants to believe that. But there's ways to go about these things. And in recruiting, I tell people all the time, and I use this with myself, love those that love you. If the Big West level is recruiting you, don't call the Pac-12 and say, hey, yeah, we got some offers from the Big 12 or from the Big West, but we think he should play in the Pac-12. If the Pac-12 if you were that good, they would come after you, and vice versa. If I call a kid and his parents and they don't call me back for the first couple of times, guess what? They're not checking for me. So we move on. And so again, just kind of, like I told you, I was going to talk a lot about this one, but to summarize it, man, like once we evaluate a kid and we realize he's talented enough, I'm going down my check line of character. I'm going down my check line of how hard he works, how tough he is. What's his background like? What elements does he have to fight through? And not that those things make a determining factor in terms of the elements that he fight through, but I want to know what we're getting. I want to be able to work with a kid so much so and build the relationship so much so that when that kid walks down the hallway, I can read his body language and feel his energy and tell he's in a pissy mood. He's doing good today. Something's not right. He's not moving like he normally does. He doesn't have the same energy. And so those are all things that go into the recruiting process. It's not just hey, he's good enough, let's go get him. Go ahead. That's your family?
Oh, no. Yeah, you're good. We're good.
Yeah.
Wife stepping out for a minute. We're good.
Sure.
With the recruiting, man, you're absolutely right, because I got to Western Kentucky because I went to camp at Clemson with Larry Shyatt. And Larry Shyatt didn't have, I found this out later, Larry Shyatt didn't have a scholarship available for me at the moment because, Clemson, from where I'm at, South Carolina, Spartanburg, is an hour down the road. So it was big for me to be recruited by them, but it was all because of camp. And then I played AAU, but that junior year going to AAU, not only did I have Wofford, who was around the corner, then now you have Western Kentucky sitting there. Well, Western Kentucky, Larry Shyatt and Coach Dennis Felton, who will be on the show Friday, they work together under Rick Barnes. So, hey, I'm gonna call him because I know that he can come to your school, Prop 48, whatever. So it became that way, and that's how I got to Cal State Fullerton. Simply enough, because it was word of mouth. I came out there, went to play ball at Cypress Junior College. Matter of fact, and then met a guy who was an alumni at Cal State Fullerton. Got in my video. Bada boom, bada bang. I'm at Cal State Fullerton. Now I'm an alum. Hopefully, my little record of back-to-back games. I broke Cedric Sabal's record of back-to-back games, most points in 2 games. He had 5, and I hit 66. Yeah, we were at a tournament in San Francisco. I unofficially hit 39, but they went back and gave it. It was 36. So I hit 30, and then I hit 36. It was good, man. I love that experience. I try to teach kids that I help around here, or when I talk to them, I get a chance to tell them, hey, man, social media is important. I was like, look at how much power social media has now. I was like, if I had the power of social media when I was playing, it could have boosted my recruiting level some. I got recruited to D1s, mid-majors, and then I had high major D2s and NAIA. Going down the line. I had a couple high majors, Georgia, Clemson, a few of the high majors, not many, but a few. But it was good. But think about like Zion. Zion's from here, okay? Like he day school. If he didn't, I'm not saying he wouldn't have made it big because the kid could play. But think about how much more social media boosted him.
No doubt.
Dunked on that kid at 10, and he was going into the 10th grade. He dunked on that kid down at Swanee Sports Academy when he was in the league. That right there made him go boom. And
no question.
That I saw Antonio Blakeney, who ended up at Louisville. They were playing Team Thad, and each one teach one. And I'm talking about he dunked on the kids so badly the game stopped because everybody ran on the court. But 10 minutes later, I'm looking at YouTube. Boom, Antonio Blakeney shuts down the gym. Antonio Blakeney dunks on 16 kid. It was crazy. I'm like, man, if we had the power of YouTube and social media then. That's why I like this Zoom because, you're in California, I'm in South Carolina, so we're able to have a conversation and shoot it out to other people so they can see it. So, so now recruiting is big. So now I'm going to turn back toward, and you can keep talking about recruiting if you have more, but I'm going to turn back just a little bit towards programming of a team a little bit. So as I told the guy I had on yesterday, I told him straight up, I was like, man, I felt like, especially at Western Kentucky, my individual workouts and my one-on-one time with a guy named Darnell Mee, who was playing overseas. He was from Western Kentucky. He played at Western Kentucky. He'd come back, work out with me, and then this guy named Nashawn McPherson. I tell you, Nashawn was probably one of the best players I ever played against one-on-one in my life. He was a 6'5" lefty, and I was a freshman, thought I was good, and he humbled me really quickly.
No doubt.
Our arena was being remodeled at Western Kentucky, and so he was able to. We would go into we were working out at middle school, so we would go to middle school at 3 a.m. and shoot around if we wanted to.
Right.
Nashawn would work to 10, 11 o'clock at night, and then he'd go home, get the wife and family situated. Then he would come. He'd be like, "Hey, you ready?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll meet you down there." So we'd be in the gym 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and we got to playing one-on-one with no dribbles, one-on-one with one dribble. And it got to a point he was beating me so bad. I was like, look, can I get 3 dribbles? Because he had that Carmelo jab step, the James Harden. And he cheated. And I didn't understand that because I was like, man, I'm good. Like this kid, he washed up. Nah, he wasn't washed up. He gave me the big. So with that being said, this is a question I want to know. How important do you feel the individual workouts are?
I think they're vital. I think they're vital because in a lot of ways, if you aren't individually getting better and improving, there's no way your team is going to improve or get better. And so again, as you know, we spend a lot of time talking about growth and development and develop you. That's kind of become our hashtag. And we spend an inordinate amount of time working on individual guys, not only on the floor, but film work, but then also doing what we call a statistical analysis. In order for a guy to get better, or improve his strengths and his weaknesses, in my opinion, you need to be aware of what those things are. You know, like if a guy is really, really good at driving right, then why would I draw up a play for him to go left? You know, there are certain things that we talk about with each individual guy as far as their breakdown, statistically breaking down their game and analyzing, you know, you're really effective in this corner, or you're not so good in transition, or you're really good in getting to the free throw line. And then from there, we kind of put together their blueprint of what their game looks like. And then every day we are trying to attack that blueprint, whether it be through team skill development, whether it be through individual skill development. But there's every day we're together, there's some type of individual attention towards those specific skills. And then not only that, we also keep track of those things throughout the course of the game. So for instance, if a kid is, you know, he does really good job getting downhill, and one of his goals may be, you know, he wants to go from 13 to 18. I'll give you a perfect example. We had a grad transfer from High Point. At High Point, he averaged 13 points a game. He wanted to get to 18, 19 points a game. We said, okay, cool. We looked at his game. This is what you do well. But if you just do this, if you go from 3.5 free throw attempts per game to 6 free throw attempts per game, you're going to improve your scoring range 3 to 5 points just right there.
Right there.
And so we would literally in the game, we would just say, hey, BK, you only got 2 free throw attempts. And you know, we could tangibly talk to him, and that's all you had to say. He immediately knew what it was, and he knew how to get himself downhill to get to the free throw line, because those are things that we talked about in his skill development. I think the other piece of skill development that is lost and underrated is the ability to play one-on-one with no dribbles. The ability to play one-on-one or 2-on-2 with 1 dribble, less dribbles. Right now, guys pound the air out of the ball. It's like they work for Wilson or Nike or Under Armour for their ball companies to try to test how much air is in the freaking ball. Hey, bro, I don't care about that. Pass it, move it, shoot it, stop dribbling it. I could care less. But as you know, you watch AAU and you watch high school, and even at our level, even my own team. I mean, they pound the air out of the ball, and they don't understand the concept and the dynamic of the ball moves faster by passing than dribbling. And trying to get these guys to understand that and buy into that is just, it's difficult, because they all want to show you they've been working on their hesitation move. They've been working on their step back 3. They've been working, dude, like the thing going back to James Harden, like he works on certain things, but if you go watch him work out, you don't see him doing half the stuff in the game that you see him doing in his workout, or vice versa. You don't see him working on the things that he does. And like what he works on in his workouts is basic. It's fundamental. And the other stuff that you see where you go, ooh, ah, in the game, it's his feel. It's his feel. It's realizing, okay, this defender's sliding over. I've worked on this move so much to where, boom, I'm going to get him here. Here we go. We go the other way. You know, those are the things that are, in my opinion, are relevant to skill development.
Right. So with that, I've always wondered this question, and I'm gonna ask every coach this question.
Yeah.
How do you go about grouping? Because I'm asking this because my next program I take over, I want to be prepared if I get, to do individual workouts, because I try to treat my high school programs like a college program, so that when my kids get to that level, if they want to get to that level, they already understand how a college program is going to work. Like you talked about earlier, be on time. Well, 3:00 is practice. You need to be there at 2:50 on the court. Right. To go, because when you get there, you're already, you know what I'm saying? And then put that in early. And so that's kind of one of my mottos I live with. Or if we got a meeting at 3:30, I need you in there at 3:15, 3:20, ready to go, so that I can start at 3:30. I can get through what I need to get through, so you can get through.
No doubt.
So for me, I've always wondered, and I know every coach is going to be different. How do you go about grouping your individual workouts and your groups for that? Because I know you get 4 people. So do you group it by skill level? Do you group it by position? Do you group it by the system that you run schematically, offensively? Or how do you go about grouping yours, or how do you suggest people go about grouping it? So I'll give you 2 questions. How do you group yours? And then how do you suggest some people should group it? Because I've always like I said, I don't know if you do it. Some have been position wise. Some have just been point guard. Some have been just your wings. Some have been your post. And then you have that mixture. But I just want to know what's the thought process behind the mixture.
Well, different now than when you played. We actually can we can have everybody on the floor. We don't have numbers. I mean, we don't have like you don't have to have only 4 guys. You can have your whole team. You just have an allotment as far as time is concerned. But I still like to do individual stuff, especially in the summer with new guys. And so more times than not, I'll try to put classes together more so than positions together. So if we have a group of freshmen, first couple 3 weeks, I'll put them together and just try to give them a foundation and a base. And then I'll integrate 2 freshmen with 2 veterans so that they can see what it looks like. They can see the pace, they can see the work ethic, and they can kind of grow and develop that way. I'll also do it position from a guard standpoint. All of our guards are governed not necessarily by 1, 2, and 3, more so by can they handle it? Can they shoot it? Can they pass it? Are they comfortable in ball screen reads? That's how we group our guards, all of our guards. So 1 through 4, we're going to have guys that do those things. And the difference with some of our 4s is they can only set ball screens. This past year, we had the option and the ability to be able to have a 4 on the floor who could set them and use them as well. And so he kind of went both ways. And so then our post guys, more of our 5 men, they are kind of our big guys and they work on. Josh, can you grab that battery thing out of my, oh, sorry. Josh. Never mind. Hold on one second. Our post guys are more built around, back to the basket, screen and roll type things. And so we'll also put them together in terms of, we'll have wings with two posts in there and work on pick and roll. We'll work on post speeds and relocating. So we kind of mix it up, man, and do a little bit of everything based on more so skill development and our concepts in terms of what we believe as far as what those concepts are. Does that make sense?
It does. I've always wondered that because I know my first year I was doing wings. I was in Western Kentucky. I got grouped both ways. I had ended up playing 4 because our 4 tore his ACL's first year. Our first game of the year in Arizona, we were number 19. They were number 1. But
wow,
they also had Jason Gardner, Luke Walton, Channing Frye, Andre Iguodala, Hassan Adams. They were loaded.
Sure.
But because Coach Felton had built the program, it was hard for him to find games, and that was a team that would play us. And I'm gonna be honest, as a freshman walking into that arena and that Tiger Sound, whatever it is, Wildcat Sound came on, I was like, yo, we about to get killed. But at the same time, then I thought about it, I was like, you know what? We're good. We're in this game, but they were just, I mean, you could tell the difference level that in them and then us, but they end up getting beat by I don't think they made it to the national championship that year. So still talking practice type stuff. Going into a practice, let's say you got practice on Monday. First practice, you're going to your first practice for the weekend. And that first weekend of practice, no games are going on. How much time do you think is adequate enough to prepare for a particular practice? Because like you say, in high school, for us, 2.5 hours, if we say 2-hour practice and we're still going at 2:15, parents are looking at us like, why are you still going? That's just too long. But I'm like, that's not enough time. I need more, but I gotta be allotted that. And I know in college you get so many hours a week that you can practice and then it changes over Christmas break because you're out of school and all that kind of stuff. So it's a lot more work. But for a particular practice, or maybe not even the first weekend, but when you don't have games, how much time, even if you have games, how much time is adequately going into planning for one practice? Not multiple practices, but just that one 3-hour practice. How much time are you allotting and planning for that?
I would say quite a bit, actually, because we have the ability to be able to, I don't have to teach or anything. I'm just basketball coach. And for the most part, I mean, outside of running a program, my days are consumed with practice preparation and recruiting. And that's, all day, every day. And so when we first start practice, we kind of almost break our seasons down into three parts as far as preseason, leading up to practice. We're on the floor, I would say 2 hours. And then there'll probably sometimes be an additional 15 minutes or 30 minutes, but that's the guys doing their own thing. Our 2 hours will be consistent of, skill development, team skill, individual skill, team skill. And then for us, we do some drill work, but I like to coach more out of playing. So we'll play 4-on-4 or 4-on-5, those types of things. And then the extra 15, 30 minutes is shooting, just straight shooting. And then as we kind of get down to the season, that 2 hours is probably down to about hour 45, hour 30. By the time we get to conference, we're no more than an hour 30. The end of the season, probably an hour. Where we've been unique, where we've been able to put together a group of guys that they love to play. They just want to play. They want to play. So to get their attention, you tell them, hey, okay, we're going to play, but we need to do this, and this drill work, and then we can go live. And so we spend a lot of time playing. And then from that, so if we practice our slots 12 to 3, we'll typically get on the floor about 12:45 and be done by 2:45, 3 o'clock at the latest. I get to watch film. And so a lot of the next practice will be based on the previous practice, what we got in, what we did bad. If we need to refresh it, do it all over because we stunk, or we can move on because we got it well or did it well. But in the grand scheme of things, I also have a little bit of a template of like the first couple of weeks, these are the things I want to get in. The next couple of weeks, these are the things I want to get in. But I'm also mindful of the speed of the group. Are they able to pick up stuff? Are they able to execute it? Then if they're not, then we got to slow it down and kind of go slower. So like for instance, our defense, the first couple of weeks of practice, the things I want to get in are containing penetration one-on-one. And then our preparation is centered around how are we building that. And then the next piece is ball screen coverage. What's our ball screen coverages? How good? I mean, what do we got to do to get prepared to be good at that? And then the last piece is rebounding. How are we dealing with that, building our rebounding concepts and so on and so forth. And so, I would say for 2.5-hour practice, I probably spend at least 4.5, 6 hours sometimes getting ready for that 2.5 hours. And a lot of that's watching film. A lot of that's could be talking to our staff, talking about what we did, what we need to do. There's just a lot of things that go into trying to get ready for those 2.5 hours.
Yeah. So in that allotment of 12 to 3, when do you adequately how much time do you guys spend in the weight room? And for me, this is probably my own philosophy. I believe I'm a bulk in the summer and in the preseason. And then during the season, I'm lifting to maintain that and trying to cut you up. Definitely starting in the preseason, starting to cut you up and build definition. But a lot of coaches at the high school level, I'm not going to say the college level, because I know it when I was both places, I lift during the season. But at the high school level, a lot of coaches stop lifting during the season. Do you think that is good, or should you lift during the season? I vote you should lift all year long, because I don't think if I bulk, and then I stop when the season comes, that muscle can either get heavy or turn to fat. So
sure.
How often are y'all in the weight room? How much time are y'all spending there? Do you lift during the season?
Yeah, we're in the weight room, and again, it goes back to your culture question.
Yeah.
A big part of our culture is established in the weight room. The work ethic is established in the weight room, but not only does the work ethic get established in the weight room, but you gain a certain level of confidence, I believe, by doing what you do in the weight room if you're any good at it. We've been really, really fortunate to have 2 really, really young, really, really good, high energy strength coaches that both played basketball. And so they have an understanding and a feel for it. But all I want to do is just get as big as we can, as strong as we can, as fast as we can. And I want to do that all year round. And so our strength coaches have the freedom to be able to do that. But we're in such concert together to where, they know, they're at practice and they're watching how hard we practiced. So that lets them know how much they can go in the weight room the next day, or if they need to dial it back, but I believe in lifting nonstop. Now, I always want to be in the weight room. So if our practice time is 12, the guys will probably get to the weight room by 11:15, and they're in there from 11:15 until 12, or however long the strength conditioning coach needs. Once we start practice, he dials it back to about 45 minutes. And they're in there, and I believe that's important. Even in high school, I think it's important. But I would imagine the hard part for high school coaches is just the time that they have to be able to allot to it and develop, a weight room plan, and that's consistent with, getting bigger, getting stronger. But obviously, you have to, be smart with that as the season starts, or you're on a weekend three-game tournament or four-game tournament. You're not going to be able to lift as much. What do you do then? I think that's all a part of off-season planning and trying to figure out what you want to do and how important it is to you. But I think personally, it's important, so much so to where at the end of the year, we're probably in the weight room more than we're on the floor. And I'm saying lifting, like not squatting 600 pounds, but they're still getting a really good sweat. They're getting a really good stretch. They're getting after it in there, and it's important, again, like I said, from them getting better, but them also developing, I think, a level of confidence, but them also gaining conditioning and endurance through the weight room, non-pounding conditioning through the weight room that we spend a lot of time doing and talking about.
Yeah, now down here they give some high schools have basketball classes, and
Sure. Yeah.
You can either get your lifting in then, so therefore your practice time doesn't go too long. I usually, when you coach girls, you kind of can do it, but you can't do it.
Yeah.
When you coach guys, it's for me, we're gonna go to the weight room. We're gonna go to study hall for about 45 minutes, let you catch up on work if you gotta get that done. Then I got another 45 minutes. So that's giving me an hour and a half, almost 2 hours before practice. I'm gonna get study hall in. I'm gonna get practice in. I'm gonna get weightlifting.
Yeah.
I'm going to practice. So I love it. Like I'm like you. I'll cut a practice time down so we can hit the weight room for 30, 40 minutes. And
yeah.
I'm gonna shift one last time. And
sure.
Then we'll just talk at that point.
Sure.
As a coach. So I'm going to start with identity, and then I'll start talking about philosophy. As a coach, how important do you think it is that your team takes on? Because we've talked about your always be on time, always tell the truth. That's your standard. Your identity, I've seen you coach. I've watched, of course, at my alma mater, and the picture I posted shows your intensity of when you're coaching. I'm just as bad, probably worse. But how important is that identity that your team takes on your personality as a coach, that they take that on as players and they be a representation of you? Because with that being said, when I see your team play, I'm like, I know who's coaching that team, whether you're there or not. That identity, like for me, people around here know that my teams are going to pick you up in the parking lot. We're going to pressure you.
Yeah.
We're going to crash the offensive boards real hard, and we're going to play fast. It's just what I do. And it started at Cal State Fullerton, and I've seen it. And of course, I love LMU with Hank Gavis and Bo Kimball, that thing.
Sure.
System, the Gurus go with Paul Westhead and all those guys. But how important is that identity? Do you think that your team, obviously your teams take on your identity, but how important is that identity that the team has so that people understand that?
Yeah, I think your team inevitably takes on your identity just because you're around each other so much, and you always hold them accountable to what is important to you, as a coach. But I've also seen it work in my own detriment, where I'm losing my mind on the refs and going crazy, and so is my team. And so I think it's important that you as a coach understand how big of an impact you do have on your team. And there are certain times where you have to be up and be animated and get after them or get after the refs or whatever. And then there's certain times where they're rolling and you've got to realize, okay, they're good. I need to dial myself back or just kind of be even keel. And so I think the good coaches, they understand that. For instance, obviously a mentor of mine would be Phil Jackson. I always watched Phil and I wanted to mimic him, and I've done a terrible job of doing that, because he just has this unbelievable self-composure, this unbelievable discipline. And his whole philosophy is if they're not playing well, hey, you played yourself into that mess, so you're gonna have to play yourself out of that mess. And there's very little that I'm gonna be able to do and or tell you to get you out of that. You know how to do it, you're prepared, so go do it. And obviously the old mantra of when Phil Jackson stands up, somebody's in trouble. Right. But that's something that he developed. And again, it's something that he promoted. It's something that he held his team accountable to. And it's, I'm sure, something that he preached and taught to, that like, hey, when he gets up, okay, somebody's in trouble. And so I think that the identity piece it's important, but I think it's also important to be able to understand accountability. What does your identity hold your team accountable for? And they need to know when you react or respond, what you're reacting or responding to. And I would say half the time that I'm up and I'm animated is because my team's not playing hard, or they don't have the energy that I think they need, or we're in a stretch where we've been on the floor for a while and they need some extra juice. I would try to give it to them from my standpoint. But I think inevitably your team takes on your personality, no matter who you are, where you are. And I think there's an age-old adage that says, if you ever want to see the characteristics of who you are as a coach, stand back and watch your team. Right. And that's who they are. And so I think sometimes that can be a gift and a curse.
I definitely have to use that. I'm going to try to use that Phil Jackson method a little bit more because
good luck.
I'm no good at it. I've tried it. It doesn't work for me anyways. But I do need to understand, and you made a great point that it's going to help me. When they're playing good, I need to lay off.
Yeah.
Because they're rolling and they're whether they're doing everything correct that I think they should be doing, it doesn't really matter because we're on an 8-0 run right now, and I can wait till the timeout to do that coaching that needs to be done, whether it's boisterous or whether it's just encouraging and quietly and still telling them, hey, we're on a 10-0 run, 8-0, 10-0 run, but we still got to be better. We missed a couple of box outs. We got lucky because of the bounce, or we weren't in our help side rotation, or that trap you got in, you got lucky because they turned it over and your hands were high, whatever it may be. So that's good for me because I need to learn to scale that back. And then when they aren't playing, that's a good reason to be up and be animated to whether, hey, this tech I'm getting is not because I'm really mad at the refs, but this tech may motivate the players.
No doubt.
I was coaching JV girls at Charlotte. They went 3-0 whatever the year before me, and we went 13-5. In one game, they were playing bad, and one of my girls walked up to me. She was like, "Coach, you ain't got a tech yet." So I was like, "So you want me to get a tech?" They were like, "Yeah." So I'm like, okay. So a couple plays later, I end up getting a tech. We go on like a 12-0 run. She looked at me and she goes, "I was like,
right."
But your players it was good because she understood and my team understood. She was actually my captain, but they understood that when he gets a tech, we start playing harder because now he has to sit down. He can't do as much directing standing up, so we have to play that much harder to make our team go. And they understood that, and it was beautiful. Like that JV team was not my most talented team whatsoever.
No.
I had 9 players. 4 of them had never played.
Yeah.
My captain, she had the most experience. I had 3 girls that had played at least 3 years. Everybody else was 3 years and under, or no. So it was like, and so we were losing in a game. And I'll tell you this, this is how I figured out what we were good at. I was like, man, because I was playing 2-3 zone. This team was cutting us up, and I was like, we can't play a 2-3 zone. It's not in our identity. I looked at my cousin who was the head coach. I looked at him. I was like, we can't play this 2-3 zone. So I called timeout. I was like, look, get her. You get on the ball, face guard. Don't let them get it in. I said, if she gets it in, you, since you're on the ball, go trap. And I just did it on the fly. And we got like 5 straight turnovers. And I was like, I looked at him. I said, that's how we're going to play from now on. And the next game we came out, we won like 42-9. Then we won. Yeah. We started winning games, and then we beat a Charlotte Catholic who they had never beaten. You start beating teams that you're not supposed to beat because you say, well, why do you pressure so much? I said, because the pace of my practice, you can't simulate it because you don't do it every day. I do this every day. And it starts in preseason when we're conditioning and we're running, going down the line. I said, and then the amount of pressure that I put on you, you can't simulate that either because I have drills that are catered to that every day. I'm teaching them how to track perfectly.
No doubt.
So, and they were like, well, you don't. So this has been a knock on me some. Well, you're up 20 and you're still pressing. I'm like, but I have guy number 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 in the game. They don't know anything else. And at a smaller school, you're talking, if you're at a 1A school down here, you're talking those 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 could be 8th graders. They don't know anything. All they know is coaches told us to trap, press, run, and get it on the rim as fast as we can because we're going to go offense rebound.
No doubt.
And I tell people, I'm like, stick to your identity. Like, stick to it. Stick to what you do as a team and what you do as a coach. I had a coach one game, and then I'll get to my next question, but
sure,
they were whooping me. And I mean, and they called dogs off. I called timeout. I said, y'all go talk to his coach. I said, hey, coach, what you doing? He said, I'm calling the dog. I said, play your game. Don't call the dogs off. I'm not that coach that's going to complain because you run the score. You beat me playing your game because next time I play you, I'm going to be prepared for you to play your game. You want to play mine. So I think that's just like, I don't know. I get excited about stuff like that because I'm like, just play, just beat me. If you're going to beat me. Because I'm not going to.
As you should. And I think at the end of the day, that goes back to your identity. That's your identity. That's who you are.
I'm okay with being beat like that. It works out good. All right. So I want to ask, I know you, obviously we've been in conversation ever since you got a job at Fullerton, but offensively, let's start offensively.
Sure.
Ball screens and that type of thing. Is that your coaching philosophy that you want your players to be able to play off the ball screen? Because I know you said you base your guards off of, can they handle it? Can they shoot it? How are they reading coming off the screen? And I think that could be, and I'm going to take a guess here, take a stab at this. That could be going back to James Harden because, I mean, he's one of the best coming off the pick and roll. Like, he gets in the pick and roll, you're not going to stop him. You just got to hope or you got to hope he passes it to somebody else. But is that what your philosophy of your offense is pick and roll based?
It's more so our offense is more based on spacing and ball movement.
Don't give me too much. People might be watching.
No, it's all good. It's more based on spacing and ball movement. So we get in a 4-round-1 and we try to space the floor and move the ball as best we can. The whole concept in terms of ball screens is from an offensive standpoint, our whole deal is built around trying to get 2 on the ball. Can we get 2 on the ball? And we have 2 very, very simple ways of doing that. We're going to put you in a ball screen and see if we can get 2 on the ball that way, or see if we can get you to help to get 2 on the ball. And can we move the ball and find where the help came from and attack it? The other way is we want to drive it and get downhill, collapse the defense, spray it out, and now we're driving it again, or we're catching shooting. And so I think James does the best of getting 2 on the ball, that concept. But that concept to me kind of came from a myriad of things, watching Herb Sendek and being around him and his understanding of the game and how he envisioned the game being played from a spacing standpoint. Watching some of his disciples, Sean Miller right down the road as we were at Arizona State, how he kind of plays the game from an offensive standpoint and a defensive standpoint. And then as we kind of got here, I think the Miami Heat were just coming off of 1 or 2 of their championships, and then you transition into what Golden State had become. And Golden State is kind of a ball movement, spacing, everybody touches it, everybody can score philosophy. And so we've kind of tried to merge all of those concepts and crunch it down to spacing, ball movement, getting 2 on the ball. At the end of the day, if you described, in my opinion, if you perfectly would describe what our offense is, that would be it. We space the floor, we move the ball, and we try to get 2 on the ball to create different offenses. One of the other concepts I like to start off by saying is I want to be the number 1 catch and shoot team in the country. And people are like, well, what is that? What does that mean? Well, literally, there's a way to track that. Catch and shoot, it's a statistic that they track. How many catch and shoot opportunities can you create? And then how efficient are you at when you create them? I want to be very, very efficient that way. I want to be productive that way. And so how do you do that? Well, you get two on the ball, you collapse the defense, whether it's a ball screen or whether it's a, get downhill and you pitch it, and that guy's standing there and he's got his feet set and he's catch and shoot. And I believe that catch and shoot shots are arguably the best, not the best, but it's what, if you go watch a guy work out, inevitably that's what they're going to end up shooting, a catch and shot shoot, unless they're working on getting to the rim or something. So I want to try to mimic what we work on most, which is open catch and shoot shots. So we try to create that sensation in our drill work, the decision-making piece, and then pitching it out, catch and shoot, knock it down. And again, I think that's the way that the professionals are playing now.
Jay Wright does a good job of that too. His is more
Unbelievable.
Like I've been studying his a lot now.
Yeah.
Now that you tell me that's some of your philosophy, I'm gonna put some film so I can look at it.
Yeah.
But
Well, hey, let me tell you this. It don't always look like what I just said.
I need a game that looks like what you just said. No, what I did was I went and typed in Jay Wright, and he has that spacing thing down to a T. He's like, his four guys have to be 18 to 20 feet apart.
Yep.
Big stays opposite the ball, set that randomly ball screen. And one of his philosophies is you're the most open as soon as you catch it. And that makes sense, because when you catch it, that's usually when the man's hands are down and he's closing out to you. So you got to get shot at. To the outside world, that looks like, man, they're taking crazy shots. No, they're taking shots within their system. That's just what they do. And they go baseline. They're going baseline sometimes to score, but about 75, 80%, they're going baseline to jump out of bounds and make that wraparound pass or hit the big who's curled to the middle. So it's spacing nowadays, I think, and you can elaborate on this, spacing nowadays is important, because if you keep everybody close together, those 10 people can get really bogged up. But when you space that out, and you set a pick and roll, if I'm in the top corner right across half court and you come set a pick and roll for me, that's hard to help. You can't help on that.
No doubt.
You're helping from a corner that now, if you help too much, that kick is going to be wide open in the corner, or I'm going to have a wide open layup down the middle. So obviously spacing is important in your offense, but how important is spacing in everybody's offense?
I think it's a matter of what everybody, what each individual coach thinks. I mean, obviously we're on this quarantine, and so on national TV, they're replaying old games, right? So I think on championship weekend, on championship, what was supposed to be the Final Four on that weekend, they played, I want to say it was a 2013. No, it wasn't a 2013. I don't remember what year it was, but it was Kansas versus Kentucky. And it was Anthony Davis was there as a freshman. And so
that was like 2011.
Something like that. Yeah. And Kansas had the kid, I think his name is Thompson. He was like 6'8". I mean, just a brute. I can't think of his last name. But anyway, they were really, really good players. And even around those guys, they were really, really good players. And the thing I found that was interesting is all of their action, all of their plays, even Kansas to a certain degree, everything was inside the three-point line. Most of it was inside the NBA line. I mean, the key, like they were just kind of playing bang them up, smash them up, derby. And I was just like, ew, this is disgusting. This is terrible. Why would you play the game? Like, you got Anthony Davis, you got I think it was the Teague kid who could really shoot. I mean, there were some dudes on this floor.
Right.
And again, basketball aesthetically, like everything, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I didn't like it. It was a low scoring, smash them up, bang them up game. I'd rather space the floor, get everybody out of the way, because 4-on-4 is a defensive game. 5-on-5 is an offensive game, because you got that other defender out there, and inevitably he's got to get two on the ball. And so if you can get downhill, and so for me, like you talked about, high pick and roll or middle third pick and roll and trying to read and react, that's the way that I believe the game. That's the way that I want to play the game. I believe if you look at the NBA, if you look at the G League, if you look at all of the professional European basketball, that's how they're playing. And I'm going to have guys that if they're going to play pro, more times than not, they're going to play European basketball. They may make the G League, I don't know. Hopefully they do, but their bread's probably going to be buttered more playing international. Well, international hoop spacing. Get to the dead corners. Literally put your heels in the corner where the baseline meets the sideline. That's where your heels should be. That creates spacing. And like you said, if they're going to help out of that corner, it's going to be so obvious that ball's got to get there. Now that dude's got to catch and shoot, or he's got to drive that long closeout. And so I think there's a coach that says it. I don't remember who it is, but I think he says offense is spacing and spacing is offense.
Yes, that is, I forget who said it, but that is definitely a good quote to live by. But yes, in Europe, that is the game. Like I was fortunate enough to play overseas and play in the D League. And the D League it's an up tempo, and it's just like the NBA. It's more of a one-on-one game. That's where I got to play against David Noel. I got to play against Richard Henry, DeMarcus Nelson, Myers, who was SEC Player of the Year. Mateen Cleaves was my point guard. I got to play with Brandon Heath and those guys. But and then you go to Europe, it's like you get one bang. Those post players are going to take one, but if you hit them a second time, it was a charge. And I learned, I was like, I would get frustrated. My coach was like, we're not physical over here. We're soft.
Yeah.
For lack of better words, and I hate to say it that way. He said, but we're soft. He said, you're going to have to adjust your post play because we're soft. And so I started using it against other Americans. You hit me once, you hit me twice. The third time you hit me, I'm going out for the charge. And so I had to adjust because I was a face-up forward, but in the block, I had an advantage because I would get one or two dribbles. I knew how to use my butt well, so I would sit down.
Yeah.
Most time I'm in that trapezoid, so I'm underneath the basket, so I need one dribble. So I learned to just do a basic drop step. People are like, why are you playing so basic? I said, because I don't have to do anything else.
Right, no doubt. No doubt.
They were like, all you do is go right. I said, well, until somebody stops me, I'm going to go right. I said, Manu Ginobili goes left every single time. I was like, so who's going to stop it? I said, now I tell people, I'm like, James Harden goes left every time. Nobody stops it. I said, he can go right, but if you're not stopping me going in the direction, and my dad used to tell me that all the time before he passed away, he was like, why am I going to stop going in one direction if nobody's stopping me?
No question.
I was just like, okay, so I would just go right. And they were like, so when I actually got traded, switched teams in that league, I had got a chance to play against my old team, and they tried to force me left. And so I would go left and score, and go left and kick, go left and score. And they were like, we didn't know you could go left. I said, just because I never did it don't mean I can't do it.
No doubt.
I'll hit him with the two dribbles left, cross it over, I'll get back to my right hand. I'm going to score whenever I want to. You're not going to stop me from scoring. It's a matter of if I miss. But that was.
I want to go somewhere with that point right there, because we talked about skill development earlier. And here's the big issue I see with skill development across the board as far as, guys coming to college. I believe as a post or even a perimeter guy, you have a go-to move and a counter.
Yes.
If they can't stop your go-to move, then there's no need to go to the counter.
At all.
It's like a boxer. He only counters when he needs to. Other than that, he's going to hit you with what he got. And I feel like nowadays, everybody wants to develop an assortment of moves. They want to come in here, and they got all these different moves, and they're jack of trade and a master of none. So the move might call for a quick shot fake, boom, drive it right, and go finish off two. But because they got all these different moves, they might shot fake you, jab you, shot fake you, jab you, one dribble left, come back right. Now they've gone from beating you to allowing you to recover to trying to beat you again. And now there's no spacing for all of that. And so go-to move and counter is what you said. Go-to move and counter. I'm going to go right until you stop me. When you stop me, then I can go over here. But until you stop me doing this one thing, you're not going to be able to deal with me. And I think guys get caught up on saying, oh, I can only just do, like right now, we're recruiting a guy who he can really shoot. Like this guy shoots. He made over 4 threes in every junior college game that he played in.
That's good. That's shooting.
But the whole time we're recruiting him, he like gets upset when you call him a catch and shoot dude. Hey, bro, let's switch then. You coach and let me catch and shoot, and watch how much money I make as you being a catch and shoot dude, and you watch how little money you make coaching. Like, don't be offended because you have a gift. Honor that gift, perfect that gift, and then if you need a counter, then enact it.
Ray Allen was a catch and shoot guy. Reggie Miller was a catch and shoot guy.
but they don't, guys are, that's a whole nother conversation. And I'm just going to say this word, delusional.
Yes.
Delusional.
And I tell people, I was like, dude, find this. I talked about this a couple videos ago. I talked about the 4 P's: pace, person, who you elaborated on who you are, production, and pace. But production was my biggest point because I was like, do you value your role? I was like, guys, Dennis Rodman got paid $10 million a year to rebound and play defense and wear colorful hair and dress like a girl and do stupid stuff that would aggravate the crap out of other players. But when he got on the court, he knew that he was a rebounder. And what did he do? He studied their shot rotation. He said, when I got on the court, I didn't shoot around because I didn't have to score. I had Michael, Scotty, Tony Kukoc, and all those guys to score. So I would go stand at half court and watch the other team and watch the rotation of the ball because I knew my teams. So I watched the rotation of the ball of how it would come off the rim for the other guys. So when they shot the ball, I knew where to be. So that being said, yes, I had a girl, I'm still training her. Obviously, we haven't been out and do nothing, but we worked out one day and I showed her, I said, do you know how to do a drop step? I always start there. She was like, yeah, I can do a drop step. I said, do you know why I'm asking you that? She was like, no. I said, because I can't teach you anything else until you know how to do a drop step. I said, because every move that I'm going to show you is going to be based off of you being able to make a drop step and do it effectively. So we spent about 20 minutes on catch it, one dribble middle, not even a dribble middle, just catch, drop step, scores. Catch, drop step, scores. Then I said, all right, here, add a dribble. Add 2 dribbles. She was like, but it's still the same move. I said, it is. I said, but now, here's what's going to happen now. So now the defense is waiting on you to go into that drop step. I said, so now I have to give you what you call a counter move. She was like, okay, I've heard of that. So I gave her we go baseline instead of going baseline. She faked. We go back, we turn to the middle. You got left hand hook, jump shot, whatever you want to do. So then she was like, well, what's next? I said, well, now I have what they call a counter move to the counter move. So I go move, counter move to the counter move. So now I give you that. So now when you go baseline, now you can shot fake, or I can get you into your up and under. So now you have a repertoire. They don't know what you're going to do. They don't know if you're going to go middle 2 dribbles and shoot a left hand hook. They don't know if you're going to go middle 2 dribbles and come back baseline with a drop step, up and under, and then step through again. Now I've given you all this. I said, now do you understand why the drop step basis was important? I said, because that is my foundation that I had to keep building on. I said, I can give you 1,000 moves. And like my little brother, he's my spiritual little brother, but he's my little brother. I don't go through all that. He's home from Lenore Ryan, so we got to work out a little bit. And I was like, because he is the typical catch and shoot guy. Like kid, he can knock it down, and he's good at it. So I showed him. I said, look, I'm gonna show you dribble moves. I said, but it's not gonna be what you see on TV. He was like, what do you mean? I said, it's gonna be jab, 1 dribble, up, jab, 1 dribble, 2 dribble, pull up. And I said, the only reason you're going to make them, I'm giving you the extra moves. I said, because he would do the whole, because he had a bad habit of hopping back because he's a catch and shoot guy. I was like, no, you got to drag that foot back to your pivot foot. I said, it may be a hesitation dribble that you're going to have to maybe be able to make another move if they start recovering. I said, but you don't want to make too much. And I said, don't hop. I said, try to go 1-2, because if I'm going full speed and I'm trying to guard you and you stop 1-2, well, you're still rolling and I'm pulling up shooting in your face. Right. So I tell you, that whole move and counter move is important. But if you're stopping Manu Ginobili, for example, his move was, I'm gonna go right 2 dribbles and I'm gonna cross it over left. That is my main move. I'm gonna cross it over left and I'm going to I'm gonna finish, I'm gonna dunk, I'm gonna score, or you're gonna foul me and I'm gonna shoot 2 and I'm 80%, so I'm gonna knock that down too. So, no doubt. It just is what it is. Even with James, like, he's going to go, if he goes right and you bite on it, he's going back left, and there's nothing to do about it. And I tell people all the time, they're like, but he goes left. I said, have you tried to guard him? Right. I said, I played with him live. You know what I'm saying? I've played with him several times, and I'm like, dude, it's impossible. Yeah. I said, the hardest person to guard is left-handed guy, because all you're right, you've been taught, force him left. So now when you got to readjust that and say force him right, it goes into another definitely different concept. So let me get into your last couple questions. Defensive philosophy. Do you let's talk about that. I'm gonna let you talk about that, and then offense. We don't even have to talk about it anymore. If I'm coming into the gym, so you talk about your defensive philosophy, and then this will be the last part. If I'm coming into the gym and I know I'm going to play Dedrique Taylor's team, what kind of defense is your favorite defense? If it's I got to lead, you got to lead by 2, and you got to get a stop in the last 30 seconds of the game. What is your defense? What you going to, and why? Because that.
Well, first question: we're based man-to-man, fundamental man-to-man. We're help or gap principles. We don't get out and deny. We sit in the gap just to contain penetration. My first defensive concept is I want to contain penetration. So everything we do from that standpoint is containing it, keeping it in front, and then I want to get it out of the middle of the floor. So from a terminology standpoint, I think we would be more considered a push team. We push everything out of the middle of the floor. We push everything to the sideline or everything to the baseline. And everything we do is centered around keeping the ball out of the middle of the floor. Just because philosophically, I want to know where the help is coming from. And then also I think philosophically, if the ball gets to the middle of the floor, it opens up more options versus utilizing the extra defender on the baseline. And so we're committed to teaching that way. We're going to stay man to man. We're going to try to guard you as best we can. Like I said, we're very, very help oriented. We live on the midline, or try to get to a blocks and elbows type of situation where if the ball's out, we want to cover the ball side block, ball side elbow, and then get on the midline and make the floor look really, really small, like there's no space to go. So from an offensive standpoint, we want space. Defensively, I live on the other end of the spectrum of I don't want any space. I don't want the ball to see any space. They can pass it around the perimeter as much as they want. But if they infiltrate this perimeter or this line here, we're going to attack them, whether it's with help defense or a hand and foot stunt. Our ball screen coverage is we down it, we ice it, we push everything to the sideline or to the middle of the floor. We don't want you to use a screen. If you're in the middle of the floor, we'll weak you, which means sends you to your weak hand, whichever hand that is. And so at the end of 30 seconds, depending on how the game is going and if we've pulled it out enough, our counter is our 1-3-1. You might see our 1-3-1. We might be in it for the whole possession. We might be in it for a couple of passes, and then we'll match up. It just depends on how I feel like the game's going on. But more times than not, if it's the last possession, we're probably going to be in man-to-man.
Okay. One last thing that I'll let you go.
Yeah.
Give me your advice to any young aspiring coaches that you're telling them. What would you tell them if they said, Coach Taylor, what advice can you give me about coaching? What would you tell them?
I would tell them first and foremost to identify, what one strength you could add value to any organization. What's the one thing you do? What tangible skill set do you have that adds value to that organization or that team or university? And then I would say just continue to hone it, continue to network, continue to participate in these types of things, but then don't just leave it here. Find a way to connect the dots with that person so that you can develop a meaningful, genuine type of relationship that has some purpose, it has some value. Everybody wants to, everybody sees coaches and they see the $1 million contracts that they think they get. They see the nice suits, how they dress, but they don't have any idea how much work goes into looking that way, getting to that point. And so I think, identifying what your strength is as far as, what you think you bring to the table, and then being able to continue to sharpen it, but also develop relationships and presenting yourself as a valuable asset because of that one skill set. And then you can grow it as you move along. But I think it's important to be able to come to the table with something, even if it's just you're a high energy guy. For me, if you're a high energy guy, you're going to get my attention. I don't dig anything less than that. That's just the way that I operate, the way that I am. I believe in energy. I believe in effort. That just defines me.
So you're still the coach that gets out there and shows your players you can still play.
I don't do that. I do not do that. I do not do that.
I'd be like, they'd be like, you were just coach, why are you sweating? I'm energized. Let's go.
Yeah.
Like, and I tell my teams, and if I got more energy than you, there's a problem.
No
I said,
doubt.
I'm at 6'7". I ain't gonna tell my weight, but I have more energy than you.
Yeah, no question.
More energy than you. Well, Coach, I'm gonna take us off Facebook Live, but I really, really appreciate it.
Definitely.
Again, Facebook, this is a important conversation for me because this is the coach at my alma mater. I love Cal State Fullerton and everything about it. And as you can see, that my logo is blue and orange. Go subscribe to YouTube. My YouTube channel is Full Court Press with Coach Jay. You'll see my logo. I'll put the link up on Facebook up underneath this video, and I appreciate everybody for tuning in.
Thanks.
Yeah, Coach, give me a second. I'm gonna come off.